Hi, this is Paul with the Quattro Squad. Welcome to episode 3 of our Quattro Rally Build, final assembly edition. When we talked last time, we'd just got the car into its build space. We'd put some green Saran type material over the paint to protect it. We also installed some gold heat shielding on the underside along the transmission tunnel. Got the trunk seals in and the door seals. So when we finished installing all the heat shielding on the underside of the car, we still had a little bit left, so we decided to put some on the underside of the hood right above the turbo. Then, as we were still feeling very protective of our car, we decided to install some Dynamat. We put on the rear bulkhead, which is made out of aluminium, very boomy, presumably, if we ever get to run the car, and we'll find out. We decided to do this now because once we put the fuel tank in, which we need obviously to get the engine running, it's going to be really difficult to install it. Of course, being a race car, we use the lightweight version of Dynamat. Who knew they made a lightweight version? As we may have talked about in the previous episode, our current goal is to get the car rolling around on its wheels. So obviously, in order to do that, we're going to have to install the subframes. Our car initially came with solid aluminium subframe bushings, so of course we're going to use them. But we did discover that the Audi subframes use different thickness bushings in the front than the rear, and all our bushings were the same thickness. So we had to machine them down a little bit so that they would still work. So one surprise that awaited us was when we went to install the rear subframe. We found that the differential output bush seal on the driver's side was leaking, even though we had replaced it. But that was probably 8 years ago, and it's just been sat around, and I guess it has shrunk. So we need to get a new seal there. So we took the differential off the subframe, and we'll install that later. So even though you don't need a trunk-mounted oil cooler to get the car rolling or even to get the engine started, we did decide to mount ours just because, well, the excuse was it added rear weight, so the car might be less tippy than it otherwise would once we get the engine in. But come on, we all know that was a bit of an excuse, really. We just thought it was so cool and we couldn't help ourselves. So that got installed as well. So something else we did that is not really necessary from the point of view of getting the car rolling around on its wheels or getting the engine started was installing the shifter mechanism, and primarily in this case we were wondering how to come up with a new shifter bushing that goes through the transmission tunnel, as ours was basically turned to dust when we took it off the car. So these shifter bushings are no longer available, of course, so we were scrambling around the aftermarket to see what we could come up with, and this was our first attempt, something we had lying around in a box. But it proved to be too short and was not going to work, that you could not move the lever longitudinally sufficiently with this thing in place. So we kept searching for another solution. So we found this VW part. We think it's the actual shift lever boot, and it seemed like it would work, so we ordered one up. It turned out it fit pretty well. The one problem, it didn't have a slot to fit in the transmission tunnel flange, so we decided we could make a bezel and attach it with some small screws, or even rivet it with aluminium rivets. So one thing we definitely do need to get the car rolling around on its wheels are strut tops. We got these from Comp Brake in the UK. Front ones are adjustable and the rear ones are fixed, but you can probably use the front adjustable ones in the rear as well, and also change the rear camber. So by now you may have come to the conclusion that we are struggling to focus on the parts we need to get the engine running or get the car rolling around. But we soon concluded that it was a lot easier to install things on the front bulkhead area with the engine out, so are now focusing on trying to attach parts to the bulkhead that will be difficult to reach once the engine is in place. So the first thing on this list was to install the brake master cylinders. Again, these came from Comp Brake in the UK, twin cylinders, no servo. First thing we needed was a bulkhead gasket, so we had to make one of those. We also had to make some new bushings because ours had disintegrated or disappeared. So with the gasket and the bushings made, we were able to install the brake master cylinders and also the pedal box. So we hope you enjoyed this little update. Stay tuned, subscribe, click like, all those things, and check back with us in a few weeks when hopefully we'll be driving the car around the parking lot.